Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. Today is a solo episode, and what I want to share are my takeaways from my recent trip in the United States. Now, I did the same thing last year. It was titled USA 2022 My Travel Takeaways, and that was episode 231. So I thought I would do the same thing again this year because it's one of those things, and I mentioned it last year, that when you travel, it's fine. You can have a lot of fun when you travel, which I always do. And anyone that knows me knows I like to have a bit of fun. But you can travel and just have fun, or you can travel with intent. And the idea of doing that is trying to learn something every single day. So as I said, the trip can be just as enjoyable. In fact, it can be more enjoyable because if you get an experience with each adventure that you have, you sort of learn something at a slightly higher level. So I thought I'd do the same thing. I've got a pile of notes here in front of me of my trip. So if it looks like I'm looking down, it's because I am looking down every now and then just to keep me on track. So basically, I think you take more away from each day if you think about each day as you go through it. So I'm not going to go step by each day, but I'm going to take you, there were three parts to my trip. This year, I went to my favorite event that I always go to, Dave Free's Business Black Ops in Tempe, Arizona. Then from there, my next stop was Nashville in Tennessee to catch up with a few people that I know. So it was going to be a bit more of pleasure. And then the final stop was in Chicago. And in Chicago, I was going to be running a full day workshop. So let's start on the first part of the trip, which was Business Black Ops. Now, all I can say, and I've said before, this is my favorite event of the year, not just because of the content that we always get, that I know I bring back and I then use that content with a lot of my coaching clients, but it's also the other attendees that are there, the people that I've connected with over the years since 2015, and they've become really good friends. And when we catch up with each other, we don't just talk about business because they're friends. We talk about business and we also talk about life. And sometimes it's good to just share what is happening in your life with other people that you really, really trust. I think that is really important. So here's my first takeaway is there's nothing better than meeting in person, meeting face to face. And I know that, there's a lot of podiatrists that may just be hiding away in their clinics and they connect with people over Zoom, which is fine. And I know during COVID, we had to do that. But sometimes there's nothing better than just being face to face. Now, when I'm recording this at the moment on the 24th of November, 2023, of course, and it was only about a week ago that I had my first 2-day podiatry business reboot. It was a 2-day live event and we did it in Brisbane. And I must say, it was absolutely amazing. Now, previously, I had delivered the 2-day event. It was called the 12-week Podiatry Business Reboot, and we did it over 12 weeks, and I actually did it online. So at the 2-day live event, we had 11 attendees, which was great because usually when I did this online, or I delivered it online, there'd be sometimes between 6 to 8 people that were actually there. So to have 11 live was great, and I think that is a perfect number and what I will do in the future when I do another one in 2024. But what I noticed that was probably more important was how well the group gelled when they were in that room together, especially the attendees that also attended the Work Smarter, Not Harder event that I did with Jonathan Small in July this year. And the podiatrists that attended both, you could tell that they were actually a lot closer this time. So there were five or six, I think there were 6 people that were at the Work Smarter, Not Harder, who were also at the 2-day live event. And you could tell straight away, there was just this camaraderie between them. And I think you can have camaraderie when you're meeting online, but it takes a long time to actually develop that. But when you're meeting live, when you're meeting face to face with people, and you're spending, like a whole day or 2 days with them, which when I did the event with Jonathan Small was the same thing. It was a 2-day event. And this time it's a 2-day event. So some of these people that have been at both really got to connect with each other. And the same thing happens when I'm at the Business Black Ops event. There's a couple of people there that I catch up with that I really look forward to meeting up with. And there's 2 guys that each morning we meet at 6 a.m. We go for a walk. After a walk, we go and have our Starbucks coffee. and that's Brian and Tom. And Tom Foster is going to be on next week's episode. He has a website development business called Foster Web Marketing, and that I've already done the recording, so you're going to really, really enjoy it. So stay tuned for episode 303 with Tom Foster. So the Business Black Ops event this year was focused on AI. That was what the theme was all about. And prior to the 3-day event, though, they have what they call a VIP day. And it's a smaller group within the larger group where we discuss AI as well, but we also discussed other business-related matters, but at a slightly higher level. And here is my first takeaway. If there is a VIP group at a function or an event, paying that little bit extra is worth every cent. And if there's an opportunity to do like an additional day at anything you're going to, just take it. I look at it this way. You've already spent the money on accommodation. You've already spent the money to actually get there if you had to travel. So while you're there, you may as well stay the extra day if there is a VIP day. And I've told this story a few times at live events and also on the podcast that Universal Studios, for example, I've been there twice. They have 3 ticket prices. The first ticket is just a standard entry where you line up to get on rides and do all the other things. Then they have a frontal line pass. You pay a bit more, frontal line pass, which means you can get to the head of the line, don't have to wait so long, and you can do it once on every ride or attraction. They also have what they call a VIP ticket. Now, it is probably 3 times more than the average price, but you get to go in earlier. You get breakfast, you get lunch, you get all these other extras. You get to do things that people don't normally get to do when they have a normal entry. You get to go into sound studios. You get to go into the props department. There's so much more involved. So I always say to people, if there's a VIP option, if there's an extra day, just take it. Don't just do the standard thing, especially if you've already spent money to be there, to have accommodation, flights, food, and just spend the extra time. So back to Business Black Ops. As I said, the focus was on AI, not just on how to use it, not just the tactics, but the mental thinking or the mindset that you need before you consider using it, which I think is really important. And I'll break it down. I'll explain what I mean. With the mindset, it was about thinking about thinking. It's really getting your head in the right frame of mind. Then we moved on to strategy on the next day. And strategy is about thinking about doing. And then the last day was about the tactics, was the actual doing. Now, I see so many events at the moment where they're talking about AI and everything is tactics. Do this, do that. But there's not a lot of strategy behind it, and there's not a lot of mental thinking behind what you're doing. So this leads on to the other takeaways about when using AI is make sure that when you're using AI or doing anything, that it's on purpose, vision, and mission with what your business is actually all about. And this will give you a lot more clarity with what you want to do and how it actually lines up with your ideal patient. So there's a lot of different AI apps and programs out there that are extremely helpful, but you've got to make sure you're just using them the right way and the thought process beforehand goes into it. Mindset first, then strategy, then the tactic of actually using the AI program that you're going to use. And the other biggest takeaway that I learned at Business Black Ops was the sooner you adopt AI in your business, the better you're going to be. Late adopters are going to fall so far behind everybody else. And this relates to like many other aspects of podiatry. So many podiatrists wait until something is popular before they actually jump on board and do something with it. So just think about it. I've got a few things written down here. When there was dry needling, mobilization, shockwave, whether it was laser, the people that got in early and adapted it into their practice have done far better than the people that come in a lot later. I know when, even going way back when we had treadmills and video cameras and everything set up, we were the first podiatry clinic to have it. It was years later before everybody else in my area was doing it. And then while they were trying to promote that they had it, well, everybody knew that we already had it. So, like I always say, nobody remembers who came second. Think about the Olympic Games. When Usain Bolt won 3 gold medals, 300-meter races at 3 different Olympics, can you remember who came second at those three Olympic Games in the 100 meters? Most people don't know, unless you're a real avid athletics person, you're probably not going to remember who it was. So, and I also did a presentation while I was there called Amplify Your Marketing with AI, which I'm going to do a webinar in early 2024 on that particular topic. And on the subject of webinars, before the end of this year, I'm going to plan out what a lot of my webinars are going to be for the next year. And I'll create a list, and I will actually have it on my website, tysonfranklin.com, and also a link in podiatrylegends.com. So go and check that out before the end of the year, and I will have a list there for what I'm going to be talking about in 2024. And the reason I want to do that this year, or before the end of this year, is so people can look ahead, pick the ones that they want, and they can get it in their diaries early. Once again, you can watch a replay, which is great, but attending a webinar live is also really good. And at the moment, I've actually got an automated webinar that you can go and check out as well. So if you're in the Podiatry Business Owners Club on Facebook, if you're not, come on over, just going to answer 3 simple questions and you're in. And I'll be putting links there for this automated webinar that I've got in place at the moment as a bit of a things you should be doing before the end of this year to actually get ready for next year. So each year at Business Black Ops, we go out to Dave Free's ranch, and he teaches us a few like life skills and hacks that relates back to business. And this year we did knife and hatchet throwing, which was a lot of fun. We also learned how to pick locks and also how to get out of handcuffs by picking them as well. Now you might be thinking, how does this relate to your business? Well, when you're teaching someone a new skill, something they've never done before, like picking a lock, and they do it, it's a real mental breakthrough. So we did lock picking, I think it was 4 years ago. And when I did it the first time, we had 3 locks: an easy lock, an easy lock, a medium lock, and a hard lock. 4 years ago, I could only get through the easy lock. This time, I already knew I could get through the easy lock. So I went in with a little bit more confidence. So bang, did the easy lock like that. It was really simple. So then I moved on to medium lock, and then I moved on to the hard lock. And I was able to master all 3, which I was sort of, high-fiving myself. I think when it comes to teaching team members new skills, it's pretty much exactly the same process. Sometimes it takes a while for them to just get the hang of it, but with practice, they will definitely get better. And if you've never thrown a knife before, I'll actually say there's actually a real art to it. Now, this is probably not something you want to teach your receptionist, unless your clinic's in a really, really bad area. So that's just a different skill, but it's still one of those things. When you're handed a knife the first time and you're told just to throw it, I tell you, you'll throw it, you will not hit the target. It'll just bounce off. When you're shown how to throw it the right way, boom, you'll hit the target. You may still miss the target. I missed a few times, but eventually you will actually hit the target. Once you do it a couple of times, then you start getting that rhythm. It's no different to any other new skill that you're teaching a team member. It's just practice. And if somebody doesn't master it after a period of time, then maybe they're not the right person for that position. That is a big takeaway. And that's how some of these things that Dave Freeze teaches us at Business Black Ops, how it actually relates back to your business. So after Business Black Ops, I traveled to Nashville. That was the second stop. Now, there was a slight hiccup before going to Nashville. A friend I was supposed to meet up with, Jeff Petersen, who was on episode 238 of the Podiatry Legends podcast. It was titled Care Differently. And we did it live from his music studio in Wisconsin. Anyway, he rang me the day before and he said that he was really, really sick with COVID and he wouldn't be coming to Nashville, but I could still actually stay in his music studio in Nashville, which of course I did. And here's another takeaway. Sometimes things just don't go to plan. And when that happens, you have 2 choices. You can just drop your bundle and complain about it, or you can just go with the flow. You just do it. So I decided to go with the latter. Now, I must admit, initially I was a bit, it threw me a little bit because I was expecting to meet him there. But I went, you know what, I'm going to have a good time anyway, and I'm going to learn something every day while I'm actually there. And I also wanted to catch up with some other people that I knew. So there was one particular guy, Lee Hoffman, and he was a guy I've known for about 6 years. He has a podcast called We Travel There, which I have been on. I was talking about Cairns. And Lee took me to a restaurant called Party Fowl, interesting name, which was renowned for its spicy chicken. Now, I didn't realize there's 6 levels of spice that they have. They have no spice, mild, medium, hot, what they call it, Nashville hot, and then they had Poultrygeist. So I went for mild. And I'm so glad that I did, because even the mild put a little bit of sweat and a bit of beading on my bald head. So, but it was fantastic. But something else that was really unique about the party foul was that it was, they had beer. Or you could buy beer. And when you got your glass, you had to make sure you didn't play with the bottom of the glass, because on the bottom there was this massive hole there, and the hole was actually covered with a magnet that they put inside the glass. And after you drank your beer, you'd pull out the magnet, and each magnet had a letter on it. And when you collected them, it spelt a word. And whatever you could spell out, if you drank enough beers, you could actually win that prize. So it might spell shirt, or it might spell beer, and you get a free beer. And I thought that was actually really, really cool, because I'd never seen anything like that before. And here's another takeaway. What can you do in your podiatry business that is unique? Now, of course, you're not going to be selling beer, but just think about that idea that they served a beer like you get anywhere else, but they gave it a little twist and made it unique. So just think about, how could you actually come up with something else in your podiatry business that is unique that nobody else is actually doing? It might just be an add-on. I also went to a bar that was actually off the main strip called Big Machine Vodka. And there was only a few people when I first arrived, but the crowd was slowly growing. But there was also some live music. Now, there was a guy there performing by the name of Alex Schofield. And I noticed when he stopped playing, nobody acknowledged his effort. I went, okay, that's interesting. So when he finished the next song, I decided to clap. So I got there, and gave a bit of a clap. After the next song, I did the same thing, and so did 2 or 3 other people. But as the crowd grew more and more, and I kept applauding his efforts at the end of each song, everybody else started applauding. Then I went up and I put some money into his tip jar, because I thought he was doing a great job. As soon as I did that, everybody started to follow. Everybody was applauding, everybody was cheering, and his tip jar grew fairly quickly. Now, afterwards, he came up to me, introduced himself, thanked me for actually getting the crowd going, and he gave me a copy, gave me a CD of his latest music. And it's funny, I've done this many times over the years. I see a live performer, I will acknowledge their effort, and every time they come up to me, they introduce themselves, they thank me. More often than not, they actually give me a copy of their music CD at the time. And once again, they thank me for getting the crowd going. And there's 2 takeaways here. The first one is acknowledging good performance, not just at a bar, but also with your own business. Your team will really appreciate it. When you see a team member doing something right, I know it's really easy for us sometimes to notice them when they do the wrong thing and we pull them up for it, which you should, but it's also acknowledging when they do the right thing. I think that is really, really important. The second thing, and I spoke about this at the 2-day Podiatry Business Reboot, you will notice what they call social conformity. And that's when somebody sees somebody doing something and then they see somebody else doing it, everyone will start to get on board. And this happens in your business, both sometimes in positive and negative ways. And it's really important to just be aware of this, which is why I always say you get what you tolerate. So if team members are doing the wrong thing and you're, I'm too busy, I couldn't be bothered, and you let them get away with that, they think that's normal. And new team members will quickly conform to this behavior. Even, and this is important, even if it doesn't sit well with them at the start. They might be going, oh, no, this doesn't feel right. That's not what you should be doing. But if they notice everybody else is doing it and the boss, the employer, is letting them do it, then they will do it because they want to fit in. And that's what social conformity is all about. If everybody is doing the right thing and a team member is doing the wrong thing, they'll notice that, oh, nobody else is slacking off. I better do the right thing. So it can work both in a positive and a negative manner, which that's why it's really important. You get what you tolerate. Pull up poor performance or bad behavior really, really early. The next day, when I was in Nashville, I visited the Nashville Parthenon, which is a replica of the one in Athens. I mean, exact replica. And you may have seen on the video, I shot a video on my YouTube channel, Tyson E. Franklin, if you want to go and check it out. And I'm standing at the front and the Parthenon's behind me. And when I saw all the pillars there, it just reminded me of the 6 pillars of marketing, which I talk about in my book. It's No Secret There's Money in Podiatry. If you do not have a copy of that book, what are you waiting for? I wrote it in 2014, and to this day, every month, I still sell between about 6 to 10 copies still get bought or purchased through Amazon, which I think is fantastic. So if you don't have a copy, go and get yourself a copy. The final thing I want to mention about my time in Nashville was this small little coffee shop called Osa Coffee, OSA, which was just down the road from the music studio where I was actually staying. And it was just one of those small, hole-in-the-wall type coffee shops. But when I arrived, there were 10 people lined up. And to tell you, I know why. The coffee was good, and the barista who was serving me was super friendly. He was the nicest guy. I remember the first thing I ordered, whatever it was $6.04 or something like that. So I had the $6 and I'm rummaging around to try and find the coins. He said, don't worry about the 4 cents. I went there pretty much every day. And I think we can all learn from this, that you don't need to have a big business to actually be popular. Just provide a good product and a good service and have the right team members in place. And do this, people will return, which, like I said, which I did daily, and your reputation will grow. The people that I was supposed to meet up with, they actually said to me, oh, if you want a coffee, there's a couple of coffee shops, but they recommended this one that was a small hole in the wall. They said the coffee's good, the people are friendly, and it lived up to the reputation. My final destination was Chicago, which I've never been to before. Great city. I'm not a fan of big cities, but Chicago, there's something about it that was really good. And I was only there for 3 days, but I will definitely go back at some stage. As I previously mentioned, the purpose of going to Chicago was to run a full day marketing workshop with another person. And there were a few people booked in, but due to unforeseen circumstances, there were cancellations pretty much at the last minute leading up to it. And also my co-presenter had to pull out unexpectedly, which wasn't part of my plan. In the end, there were only 2 podiatrists that were actually registered for the event. And you'd be thinking, okay, that's not good. And most presenters would have just pulled out. They would have said, no, I'm going to make other plans. I'll go somewhere else. But I had said right from the start when we booked in the date to do this, that I didn't care if there was only one person that was booked in. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Even if it's going to actually cost me money. If I'm going to lose out, I'm still going to do it. I'm not going to cancel it for any reason. And I did have plenty of opportunity to pull out and make other arrangements, but I chose to do it anyway, but a slightly adjusted version of it. So since my co-host was going to be doing their part of the workshop, I said to him, look, just give everybody a refund. And if they still want to catch up for half a day, I'd present my section of the workshop. It'd go for about 4 hours and I'd do it for free. It wasn't going to cost them anything. So I'd already paid for my airfares, my accommodation, everything to be there. I could have said, hey, still charge them or charge them half price. But I said, no, just give them their money back. I'm going to do it anyway. And I will admit, it was bloody great. I really enjoyed sitting down with them and going with. We spent about 4 hours with 2 great podiatrists. That's what I can pretty much say. One of the podiatrists was a past Podiatry Legends guest. It was Mike Donato. He was on episode 268, and he was the president of the American Academy of Podiatric Sports Medicine, and he was from Virginia. And I'd say I also had a future guest that's going to be on the podcast, I reckon. I haven't told him yet. Ben Wilkinson, who was from Ontario, Canada. 2 really, really nice guys. Different stages in their career as well. Mike's been around for a while. Ben is sort of really just kicking off the last few years. I really enjoyed the time that I spent with them. And it looks like we're going to have a great long-term friendship and working relationship. So I tell you right now, it was worth it. And I learnt a lot from that experience. First, what I learned is stand behind your word. When you say you're going to do something, do it. Whether it's with friends, family, team members, other businesses, if you say you're going to do something, just do it. Even if it doesn't suit you, even if it may cost you, do it anyway. Your reputation is really, really important. So if you say you're going to do something, just basically do it. The second thing, And this is pretty much on the wall behind me where it says your next connection could be the one that changes your life. And I know the information that I provide in my marketing talks is extremely valuable when it's applied to any podiatry business, no matter where you are and on what stage your basically career or the development of your business. Now, I could have just kept this information to myself and said, oh, yeah, I won't do it. But I've also said, and I've told a lot of people this, I don't think I'm ever going to change the world. I'm pretty sure of that. I'm not going to find the cure for cancer or anything like that. But I hope that the content that I provide, the talks that I give, the podcasts, the videos that I produce will have an impact on somebody. And that person will go on and significantly make a difference. Or something that they learn, they will pass on to somebody else. And somebody else will actually change the world, which is why I do what I do. Now, on my last day of the trip, my final day in Chicago, I caught up with a past Podiatry Legends guest, Patrick McEnany, who has been on the podcast 5 times, so you've probably recognized the name. And also a podiatrist that works with him, Remy Stackers, who's an Australian podiatrist who's now working in America. And he was on episode 114, and it was called An Australian Podiatrist Does DPM. And I also met up with Pete Lovato, and Pete is going to be on this podcast as well about mid-December, I think it's going to be. We haven't done the recording yet, but we will be doing it soon. So Patrick invited me to my first NFL game. It was the Chicago Bears versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And at the stadium, also when I was at the stadium, I met another podiatrist there, Jessica Knight, who was another Chicago podiatrist who was there for the game. And I've organized for her to be on the podcast in January. So if you go back to when the workshop wasn't really going to work out, and I could have said, I'll make different plans, I'll go somewhere else. Look at all these great things that have actually happened because I decided to actually do it. Anyway, before the actual game, they do this thing called tailgating. Now, if you're in America, you probably know all about it. But for an Australian who's never done it before, it was a real experience. And it involves thousands and thousands of people or fans meeting in the car park, hooking up barbecues, and basically drinking and partying for about 4 or 5 hours before the game. And talk about being charged before a game. It was a lot of fun. And I'd like to point something out to my Australian listeners and friends who are listening to this. They think a lot of Americans drink low alcohol beer because it has light written on the side of the cans. Now, light in America does not mean low alcohol. I think it relates to taste or something like that, but it's definitely not low alcohol. Their beers are classed, if they're in Australia, would be classed as a heavy beer. So if you think Americans are just drinking beer that's like water, that is not the case. So I feel like Mythbusters at the moment. Okay, so you may be thinking, what was my takeaway from the NFL game? Well, I'm a big fan of traditions, and it's something that I think every podiatry business should have in the business. I'll give you an example. One tradition I have in my podiatry business is I would take my Weber BBQ barbecue into work, and on the last day of the year, I would cook the whole team, a ham and egg breakfast. And we did that for so many years. And that was a tradition that I absolutely loved. And everybody at work really enjoyed it as well. And I think every podiatry business should be looking at what traditions do you currently have, and can you introduce more traditions into your business? At the NFL game, tailgating is a tradition, and it is a bloody good one. I will admit, it was a lot of fun. Also, at the Bears Stadium, when you walk underneath there's an overpass, and as you walk underneath the overpass, like a tunnel, everybody starts screaming and yelling explicit comments about the Green Bay Packers, which is like they're a big opposition team. It's so funny to see hundreds and hundreds of people and kids, everybody just screaming out these comments, none of which I can actually say on this podcast, or I have to put an explicit warning on there. Also, everybody stands for the national anthem, and they have their hand on their heart, and they sing proudly, which when you look around the stadium, just seeing the amount of people that are doing this, it is fantastic. Now, NFL is not just a game. It is a religion for these fans, and it is contagious. Definitely, I would put it down as one of my most memorable sporting experiences. And I've been to NRL Grand Finals. I've been to State of Origin games, but I will say The whole experience of going to an NFL game was amazing. Also, this is really important. To get a season ticket for your team, say the Bears, for example, you have to be on a waiting list, and you might have to wait over a decade before you can actually buy season tickets. And even then, you start at the top of the stadium, and the longer you're a member or you keep your membership up, you can slowly move down the stadium as other people don't renew their memberships. The thing is, if you let your membership lapse, you're going to be waiting another decade before you get the chance to get another season pass. So talk about supply and demand. And if you think about how does this relate to podiatry? If your podiatry business is booked out solid, I mean, you've got these long waiting times for anybody to get an appointment. Think about the whole supply and demand model. Use this idea. If there is a large demand for your service where you currently live, you can charge more, or change the rules of when you book patients or the type of patients that you actually want to treat. And because it doesn't just apply to like sporting teams and other big businesses. I shot a video last week and it was titled The Evolution of Podiatry Businesses, or it was Podiatry Evolution. And I think when you first start your business, you lack experience, you're sort of like in the semi-pro league, you're in the minors. And usually you're seeing semi-pro or like minor type patients, and sometimes you're charging semi-pro prices. But as your business grows, if you want to go full pro, you want to be professional, you want to be in the major league, you can only do this if your podiatry business evolves. And to do this, you've got to sometimes just let go of the past. So patients that served you when you first opened your business may need to move on to the new podiatry clinic opening up down the road, which will free up your time to see higher paying, better quality patients, especially if you've been around for a while and you've got experience. You've been out 10, 15, 20 years and you've got a lot of experience. You've got some new guy that's just come into town, and also the people that have got, more complex problems can't get into you because they can't get an appointment. They're going to go and see the new guy who may not be as experienced. So, and this also sort of relates to your team. Some of your team may need to be moved on if they are not performing, because as your business grows, they may not be able to cover. They may be better suited to a smaller business. And sports teams, if you think about it, sports teams move players on all the time, especially at the highest level, especially if they want to succeed. Yes, I think loyalty is very important, which is why you should be trying to train your team and lift them up to that next level. But you've got to let them go if they're making mistakes constantly, no matter how much you tell them, and it's actually costing you money. The other thing top sports teams do is they have a coach, and that is going to get them the trophy. That's going to get them the prize that they're chasing at the end of the season. So at the moment, if you feel like you're stuck in the minors, you're feeling like you're semi-pro, get yourself a business coach. Every successful person I know, inside and outside of podiatry, has some form of guidance from somebody at some point in their career. And if they tell you they didn't, more than likely they're probably lying to you. I've had different coaches at many stages of my podiatry career. And even now, I still have coaches, mentors, people that I talk to that I get guidance from in different areas. So if you want to talk to me about coaching, just go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, click on the coaching section, just follow all the pages there and basically have a read through. From there, you can actually organize a free 30-minute Zoom call with me, and we can talk about any issues that you're actually having in your business or in your career. I've spoken to students recently. I've spoken to people who are employees who are just thinking about having a business, but not right now. And I've spoken to other people that currently have a business. And even if you decide that coaching is not for you right now, it's not for you right now, I'll guarantee that after a 30-minute chat with me, you'll still leave with information and a little bit more direction on what you probably need to do next. So that's it for this episode. I know it's not a very long episode, and I hope you got something from it. I hope you enjoyed part of my trip in the United States and some of the takeaways that I actually had. And like I say, if you ever have any questions about any of my podcasts, please send an email, tf@tysonfranklin.com. If you're enjoying my videos on YouTube, click subscribe. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave a rating and review on whatever platform you happen to be listening to. So That's it for me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you next week. Next week, I will have, like I said, Tom Foster from Foster Web Marketing. Okay, look after yourselves, and talk to you again soon. Bye.